Please be seated if you are standing. I'm wondering a little bit how many of us have taken upon the custom of rising for the prayers that invite us to rise, because it's an opportunity to stand up. We really hold those precious now. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Shabbat Shalom, everybody online. Chevra, my friends, I want to tell you that my son James, who is now almost 2 years old, if you can believe it, is a wonderful person. It should be noted that I am his mother, and you probably shouldn't just take my word for it. But truly, he is kind and sweet, patient with furry creatures, little babies, and elderly folks alike. He has a wicked sense of humor, and he blows kisses when he says goodbye to every person, every animal, and especially every garbage truck he meets. But he is not so good at sleeping. We can't all be good at everything, and sleeping, it's not his thing. Who can blame him? His days are fun, his nights are dark. He is a very snuggly little person, and we make him sleep in his own bed. Just like the pediatrician and the books and the other parents in our lives advise us, we have a bedtime routine for James that we repeat every night, so he knows what to expect, and maybe secretly look forward to. We brush teeth and put on pajamas. We cuddle and giggle. We sing Sweet Baby James. And we sing the Shema. With every one of these steps, explicitly or implicitly, we are saying, I love you. You can count on me. I will always love you. The Shema that we sang at services tonight, the Shema that my husband will sing to James before he goes to sleep tonight, the Shema that we sing all the time, comes directly from the Torah portion we read this Shabbat, Vaetchanan. The whole book of Deuteronomy that we have just begun might be read as Moses' love song to our people before we leave him. All the stories he wants to tell us, the advice he wants to give us before we enter the promised land without him, and it's up to us to find the way ourselves. Emblazoned in large strokes on the parchment, the words Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad literally stand out from the rest of this week's Parsha. It's the image we share of the CBST scroll you saw for those who were watching online. The lines that follow, of course, are literally the language of love. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha. You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. I was listening to a series of interviews with Chief Lord Rabbi Jonathan Sacks of blessed memory, which he did for the BBC a few years ago, interviewing a selection of Jewish thought leaders. And I came across a conversation that he had with the New York Times columnist David Brooks. Now, friends, I have to be transparent. I don't regularly read David Brooks. I don't happen to be a big fan, but I could listen to Rabbi Sacks speak to anyone in his lovely, posh London accent all day long, which is basically what I was doing. But David Brooks and Rabbi Sacks had this conversation, and they were talking around the subject of covenants and commitments. And David Brooks said something that made my ears perk up. My favorite definition of commitment is falling in love with something and then building a structure of behavior around it for the moment when love falters. Rabbi Sacks excitedly noticed that this might be a perfect metaphor for the entire book of Deuteronomy, a book most often categorized by the immense amount of law that is packed into its chapters. But at the same time, Devarim, this final book of words of Torah, is laying down law and expectation. It's also repeating over and over again this language of love. The verb to love and its root ahav are in the Shema. It comes just a little later in this same parsha, in the verse, Adonai did not set sight on you and choose you because you were more numerous than other peoples. In fact, you were the fewest of all peoples, but it was because God loved you. In fact, Rabbi Sachs has done the count, and the root ahav occurs 15 times in the book of Genesis, but it's mostly about feelings between people. It's never actually about the feelings between people and God. It only occurs twice in each of the books of Exodus and Leviticus. It never happens in Numbers. And it comes up a whopping 23 times in the book of Deuteronomy, each time describing God's feelings for the children of Israel. Over and over again, we hear it. I love you. You can count on me. I will always love you. This was something of a shocking revelation to me, having never considered the book of Deuteronomy to be a particularly loving book. But in the context of David Brooks's comment, a new framework began to emerge. The story has evolved over the first 4 books, the love story of God and the children of Israel. There are these apex moments of promise and declaration. There are episodes of commitments and of conflict, of aspirations and disappointment. Though sometimes each party questions it, the love is there, and it is deep. But now in the book of Deuteronomy, we are at a stage we might describe as actually sticking to the ketubah that partners sign under the chuppah. As Rabbi Sachs describes it, we wed in poetry, but we stay married in prose, which is why we need laws, rituals, habits of deed. Rituals are the framework that keep love alive. We see this in our own human relationships every day. Whether it is the commitment we have made to a partner through friendship, romance, caregiving, or business, whether it's the commitment we have made to a cause or a community like CBST, our commitment won't last just because we feel really strongly about one another. Relationships take work. Love takes work. We know this is a fact of life, but we often forget it until it's absolutely necessary. And that is what rituals do for us, whether they are personal rituals we have with those we love or the rituals that we all share as a Jewish people. After all, our relationship with God and the children of Israel is one that stretches before our lifetimes and after it. We describe it as eternal. That is a long time for love to last, and we believe it will do so forever. And so we build and fill our lives with rituals, big and small, to remind us and enable us to keep love alive. We make coffee in the morning, or we go out to our favorite spot. We buy their favorite brand of dog food. We sing the same lullaby. We call to check in. We blow out candles on the cake. We kiss the mezuzah. We say the blessing. We prepare a special meal. We light candles. We say the Shema. I love you. You can count on me. I will always love you. We do well to remind ourselves at this particular time, for many reasons, this lesson. If you seek to make love undying, build around it a structure of rituals. It may be that we have been so focused on just making it through last year, or the last 2 years, or the last 4 years, or even longer, just making it through alive and something like sane. It may be that we're preparing for a new year on the horizon and working through the process of cheshbon nefesh and accounting for our actions towards one another and to God. But now is a time to look closely at all of our relationships and consider what needs our love and attention. Where have we carefully sustained, and where have we fallen short on the rituals that support those relationships? To whom do we need not only to say, I love you right now, but to also show up for it and to keep showing up for it? The Jewish calendar is ready for this moment, and has built into the fabric of our time and our text an anniversary of sorts, a special ritual that comes at this time every year, whether it's exactly when we need it or not. Every year, we always read Parshat Vaetchanan and those words of the Shema on Shabbat Nachamu, the Sabbath that comes the week after Tisha B'Av, exactly 7 weeks before the High Holy Days. We sing the words of the prophet Isaiah after weeks of rebuke and criticism. We get these haftarot of consolation. Nachamu, Nachamu Ami. Comfort, oh comfort my people, says your God. I love you. You can count on me. I will always love you. May we hear these words of love and let them sink deeply into our hearts. May we utter words of love and truly mean them. May we recommit, reimagine, renew our rituals to remember them and to keep them. Shabbat Shalom.